Last week, we brought you a long-form discussion about the NAR settlement and the ins and outs of what's actually in that settlement. So one of the pieces of that settlement states that moving forward, all buyers will have to sign what's called a buyer brokerage agreement. So what is a buyer brokerage agreement? It is essentially the same idea as a listing agreement. When you hire a real estate agent to list your home, you're going to have a signed contract that states how the home is going to be listed, who's listing it, and what the price is, and how long it's going to be on the market. All of those things are in a listing agreement. Well, a buyer brokerage agreement is essentially the same type of document and just officially secures the relationship between a buyer and their real estate agent. The document is going to outline a time frame. It's going to outline the buyer agent's responsibilities to the buyer, and these are the things that we're already very familiar with. It's going to talk about setting up searches for homes in the MLS, negotiating a price for you, negotiating repairs, all of those types of things that the buyer's agent is responsible for in dedication to the buyer. I think it also really secures the relationship part of it, meaning that this is a document that states that your buyer's agent is protecting the best interests of the buyer. It just lays that all out so that your confidential information is protected. Any sort of negotiating position that you might have as the buyer is protected by this agreement, because it basically says, I am your agent, I work as your fiduciary and yours alone, and therefore have the right to represent you as the face of this negotiation moving forward. And I am here to protect your best interests, Ms. Buyer. And so I think it's a really excellent tool. In fact, at Symphony Group, we've been using them for quite a while, and lots of real estate agents already use them because, again, it just serves to enforce and protect the relationship between the buyer and their agent, and to really show the seller on the other side of the transaction that we are a force on this side, and we are here in strong negotiation, in support of this buyer. It may not be entirely new to you. You may have signed one the last time you bought a home with your realtor, and yet moving forward, this is going to be a required document in the same way that listing agreements were required on the selling side of a real estate transaction. Again, that's one of two sort of key points that came out of the NAR settlement, is that this document is going to be required moving forward. And so it's just going to become a regular part of a real estate transaction. It's the type of thing that you would want to sign before you start talking about what is our max budget or what our specific needs are. These are the kinds of things that your real estate agent should know about you, because that helps us be able to get the best fit for you, get the best terms for you, find the best house for you. It also does, of course, cover compensation. And I know that's a big question mark in the world right now. Ours in Louisville says, I am going to attempt to secure compensation from the seller, and if I can't, you, Mr. Buyer, will be obligated to this percentage. And it's a blank, so you fill in whatever. Each agent's going to fill it in differently. But again, it's something that can be negotiated at the time that you sign your buyer brokerage agreement. There are all kinds of iterations. This isn't something that is like a national document, and it's not even really a state document. It's maybe brokerage by brokerage at this point. And I'm sure that will evolve in time. Everybody's is going to look a little bit different. It's something that you should definitely, again, sign at the minute that you need to start having sort of confidential conversations. So it might not be the first call, the first phone call you make to a real estate agent to set up an appointment, but it definitely needs to be shortly thereafter, because once we start talking about what your budget looks like and how we might negotiate on your behalf, at that point, you need to lock it down and make sure that your best interests are protected, right there at the start. So it's something you sign relatively early in the process, and everybody's going to kind of manage them a little bit different. Are you signing with an agent for a period of time? I'm going to be exclusive to you for the next such and such months, for example. Or you might sign a brokerage agreement specific to an address, like I'm signing up for you to be my agent with regard to this particular property. There are different kinds of buyer brokerage agreements out there, And different ones might serve your needs differently depending on what type of buyer, if you're an investor or if you are, a first-time home buyer buying their first residential home that they're going to live in. All of those things would be different and would serve different needs, but I'm certain that in the days and weeks and months to come, as our whole industry gets it together here, that there are going to be documents that will cover all sorts of different type of situations in the same way that we have documents that cover different types of listing situations. If you have questions about a buyer brokerage agreement, if you want to see one, if you want to see ours, we'd be more than happy to email it to you. You can reach us at the symphonyrealtygroup@gmail.com. We are always here to help you find your perfect key.